Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a little bit of a break from this year's midterms and actually look forward to the 2024 presidential election. Of course, 2024 is going to be a major year for American politics, and a Joe Biden-Donald Trump rematch is looking more likely than ever. Both candidates are still frontrunners for their party's own nominations. Of course, Joe Biden, if he ran, is automatically going to win, but his age is an issue for many Democrats as well as many voters across the country. And the last time that we saw a matchup between the same candidates in two consecutive presidential elections was all the way back in 1956 in the election between Dwight D. Eisenhower and Adlai Stevenson. But as of this point in time, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are both still favorites to win their party's renominations. And I looked at this scenario a couple of months back, and I did say that Donald Trump was favored. However, in just the last 2 months over the summer, a lot has changed, and a lot of it has been very favorable to Joe Biden and his hopes to win a second full term in office. And so looking at his current approval, Biden is 15 points in the negatives, definitely not where he wants to be, but his numbers were significantly worse just at the end of July, where it was at negative 20%. I mean, astonishingly low. Biden's numbers have gone up by 5% overall in just the last 3 weeks, and this is mainly a result of the Democrats' legislative victories. Biden is now finally back over 40%. The Democratic Party obviously just passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which was originally Build Back Better. Build Back Better was supposed to spend $2 trillion. I believe it's been cut back to less than $500 million, but still a very significant investment, especially in using renewable resources and limiting healthcare prices. So definitely big win for Democrats. We're seeing a big boost for their party nationwide. In the Minnesota special election, Democrats did surprisingly well in a House race, and so that really may be a sign that Democrats may not be trounced this year in November. On top of that, Democrats passed the CHIPS Act, and Joe Biden also authorized the killing of the successor to Osama bin Laden as the leader of Al-Qaeda. And not just that, but inflation numbers are going down as well as gas prices. So overall, trends right now are favorable to Democrats. And so this will mean, of course, that Joe Biden is going to become a bit more popular. I do not believe that Biden is going to go back into the positives. I think that maybe when he leaves office, we might see a big boost for him. That's what we typically see for presidents, of course, not for Trump because of the insurrection. But Joe Biden's numbers are probably not going to be that great, even going into the election in 2024 if he does decide to run. However, the caveat here for Republicans is that if they nominate Donald Trump, Trump is not any more popular than Joe Biden. He has a negative approval rating of 13%, and if you look at his favorables, only 41.5% of the country view Donald Trump positively, 55% of the country view him unfavorably, and obviously Trump's numbers are going to be slightly better overall than Joe Biden's, because right now Donald Trump is not in office. He cannot be blamed for many of the issues in our country right now, and so his numbers are going to be better than Joe Biden's. But in reality, if both of these candidates were to run, their numbers would be pretty similar nationwide. But I do believe that Donald Trump has a lot more haters than Joe Biden, especially among independent voters. Independents do not view the insurrection at the Capitol positively, and that is going to be a major issue for the GOP if they do indeed choose to renominate the former president. And another sign that Democrats are doing better and better is, of course, the generic ballot numbers. Democrats for 2022 are now ahead by 0.4%, and they retook the lead very, very recently. Just a week ago, the GOP was still ahead, but now Democrats have a 0.3% lead. And if you look at the numbers over almost the last year, Republicans were consistently ahead by 2% to 3% at one point, and now their lead has completely disappeared. The 2022 midterms are going to be more competitive than ever. And if Republicans can't even flip the Senate, it will be difficult for them to win in 2024 when they're running against an incumbent president. Yes, Joe Biden may not be popular, but most presidents do win their re-elections. Before Donald Trump, the last time that a president did not win their re-election was all the way back in 1992. Before that, of course, it was 1980 with the election of Ronald Reagan over Jimmy Carter. But most presidents do win their second term. Only a handful of presidents have lost re-election. Trump, of course, was one of them. But Joe Biden really cannot be counted out, even though his numbers are not that great right now. And so looking at our map here, I'm going to start off by filling in the solid states for both parties. Of course, I will be giving both Joe Biden and Donald Trump the states that Democrats almost always win by margins of over 15%. That's essentially the definition I'm going to use for a solid state. And as the country becomes more and more polarized, the solid Democratic states are only going to be more and more blue. And same thing for the solid Republican states as they trend towards the right even more. Basically, every single state that Joe Biden won by a solid margin in 2020 is probably still going to be solid for him in 2024. Yes, we did see some states that Joe Biden won by 16%, and maybe he might do worse and the margin might drop down to 14.9%. But I mean, honestly, it does not matter. These are guaranteed wins for the Democratic Party 100%, and these states in red are obviously guaranteed wins for Donald Trump. So 181 electoral votes from these states for the incumbent president and 113 for the former. And so instead of going to the likely states and then lean and then tilt, I'm actually going to make this more exciting and go from left to right, starting off with the state of Nevada. And so in the silver state, Joe Biden right now is probably going to hold on to it even in a 2024 scenario. Of course, he and Hillary Clinton both won the state in 2020 and 2016 respectively by margins of 2.4%. We also saw in 2018 Jackie Rosen flip the state on the Senate level, and of course the election of Steve Sisolak as governor, and 2 years prior in 2016, Catherine Cortez Masto did succeed Harry Reid. So Democrats have won many of the recent races in the state of Nevada. 2022 is definitely going to be a test for them, but Joe Biden is probably going to hold on to it. Nevada is not as blue as it was under Barack Obama. In 2008, Obama won the state by 12.5%, but he was also a once-in-a-generation type of candidate. We're never going to see a win like this on the presidential level in the next couple of years, and so Nevada is probably going to go back to being a very competitive race. Of course, in 2004, George W. Bush defeated John Kerry in the state, and in 2000 as well, Bush defeated Gore. So Nevada was a very competitive state for a very long time. Right now, Democrats do have the edge, but it's definitely not guaranteed that they hold on to it. And moving on to Arizona, Joe Biden, I do have him winning this race as well with a lean margin. I do think he can actually do better in Arizona than he did in 2020. Yes, Joe Biden only won by 0.3% 2 years ago, but remember, Arizona is continuing to shift to the left as we speak. 2 Democratic senators now from the state with Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly is probably not going to lose his re-election in 2022, and if we look at the 2024 race, I do think it's going to be much more competitive for Kyrsten Sinema. I would not be surprised if Sinema lost her re-election to a second term. She has just angered so many progressives on her side with the way in which she's blocking bills, just like Joe Manchin, although not to that extreme of a degree. But if you look at the 2016 election, Trump won Arizona by 3.5%, and in 2012, it was a margin of 9% for Mitt Romney. So definitely Arizona is not nearly as red of a state as it was before. And, you know, just as time goes on, Arizona is going to be bluer and bluer. And so it really is not surprising that Joe Biden is going to win it for a second time. And 2 other states to go into the Biden column are, of course, Colorado and New Mexico. These are going to be likely states. Basically, a likely state is a state that's going to vote for either candidate by around 5 to 15%. Lean, again, is from 1 to 5, and tilt is anything less than 1%. So Colorado and New Mexico were both likely states for Joe Biden in the last election. He won Colorado by 14% and New Mexico by 11%. I think that those margins can actually go down to under double digits this time around, but Colorado is still going to be a pretty solid state for Joe Biden. I cannot see the margins in either of these states going below 5%. Of course, in 2016, we did see a much closer race in Colorado. In New Mexico, was not even that solid for Hillary Clinton, but Joe Biden was a much better candidate, and so both of these races I have going for the incumbent once again. I also have Texas going for Donald Trump for a third time. He won the state, of course, in 2016 and 2020, 9% in 16, and in 20, Trump won the state by 5.6%. So definitely not as solid of a race for Republicans as it was before. Texas has a very long Republican voting history. In 2012, the state of Texas was solid for Mitt Romney. We're probably not going to see this red of a Texas in the next couple of years as it continues to shift to the left, just like Arizona. But of course, Texas is a much bigger state, and that's going to take a lot longer to happen. Next up, in Alaska, it's going to be likely Republican. I do have Trump winning the state, but just not by that solid of a margin, but definitely a state that Joe Biden is not even going to come close to winning. Alaska is shifting to the left very slowly, but 2024 obviously is not going to be the year in which we see a huge difference. However, now we're going to move on to the Midwest, definitely one of the most fluid regions in the entire country right now, and probably the most important region in the entire country right now in terms of looking at presidential elections. So I'm going to start off by giving Donald Trump both Iowa and Ohio. These two states are states that Donald Trump did extraordinarily well in both 2016 and 2020. In the 2012 presidential election, of course, Obama won re-election, winning Iowa and Ohio by 3% and Iowa by 5.8%. Now, just fast forward 4 years to 2016, Trump wins Iowa by almost double digits and Ohio by a very similar margin. 5 out of Trump's 6 flips in 2016 were in the Rust Belt, and of course, the wins for Donald Trump in Iowa and Ohio, I mean, these were much bigger wins than we saw for Barack Obama in 2012, so double-digit shifts to the right in just 4 years, and after this point, the states of Ohio and Iowa have never gone back to Democrats in any major races. In 2020, many people expected Joe Biden to do much better than Hillary Clinton. He still lost Iowa by 8%, in Ohio by basically the same margin, so obviously in 2024, these states are not going to even come close to going to Joe Biden, and I think that they may really be double-digit states for Donald Trump. And now moving on to the northeastern states, we just have 2 states here with New Hampshire and Maine. The 2nd district of Maine I do have as being lean for Donald Trump. I think he is going to underperform compared to 2020. He won the district by 7.4%. I think that margin is going to go down slightly. And for the at-large vote, I don't think there's going to be that much of a difference. I think Joe Biden can crack double digits. So the at-large vote is going to be likely for the incumbent. And in New Hampshire, I do have it as likely for the Democrats as well. Both New Hampshire and Minnesota voted for Joe Biden by around 7% in 2020, but I think that just looking at regional trends, as the northeastern region continues to shift more and more to the left and the Midwest in the opposite direction, I do think that Minnesota is going to be lean, while the state of New Hampshire is going to be likely once again. Yes, it was very close in 2016 as well, but Joe Biden is not Hillary Clinton. If we look at the 2012 election, it was just 5.6% for Barack Obama. So Joe Biden did do pretty well in the last election, and I don't think that the margin is going to go under 5% next time either. So as of right now, I do have New Hampshire as a likely Democratic state, giving Joe Biden now 264 electoral votes, 190 for the former president. And so now we're left with the chain of 5 states in the Southeast. I'm going to start off, obviously, by giving Trump South Carolina. There's no way he loses this race. It's going to be a double-digit margin for the former president. So now we have South Carolina out of the way. I can give Florida to Donald Trump for a 3rd time. He flipped it in 2016, won it by a larger margin of 3.4% in 2020, and he's going to hold on to it in 2024. Florida is not trending well for Democrats at all. I don't think Trump will crack 5%, but I mean, Florida has been very competitive in recent years. However, in just the last 4, the state really has shifted significantly out of the Democratic column. It was, of course, a Obama state in both 2008 and 2012, but in 2016, Trump won it by 1.2, and again, by 3 times that margin in just 2020. And of course, Republicans also won the Senate and governor elections in 2018 with the elections of Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis. They were close, but they were big losses for Democrats, and so 30 electoral votes from Florida will go to Donald Trump. This is also his home state now, and I do think that will benefit the former president. So Florida, once again, for a 3rd time for Donald Trump, is going to go red. I also have another state for the former president with a lean rating, and that is North Carolina, 16 electoral votes. This is a state that Democrats have been trying to capture for a very long time after winning it for the first time in decades in 2008. Before this, the last time the Democrats won North Carolina, it was Jimmy Carter in 1976. So obviously, Democrats are not going to flip it in 2024. Yes, North Carolina is going to remain a very competitive race, but Joe Biden's a 1.3% loss in 2020 just shows that he's probably not going to be the one to flip North Carolina for the Democratic Party for the 2nd time in the 20th century. And so at this point, I'm sure you realize that Joe Biden is going to win in this matchup. I'm obviously going to give him Virginia with a likely margin. Pretty much same story with Colorado and New Mexico. Biden won by double digits, much better than the margin for Hillary Clinton, despite having Tim Kaine as her running mate. Tim Kaine is the former governor and current senator from Virginia, and so Joe Biden now has crossed 270 electoral votes. I'm also going to give Biden the state of Georgia as a tilt state. I do think that Democrats will hold on to this race. I mean, same reasoning for Wisconsin. Wisconsin shifting to the right, Donald Trump is probably going to win by a very narrow margin. Georgia shifting to the left, Joe Biden already won it in 2020, and even though he may not be popular, I mean, you have to remember that Donald Trump is not any more popular than the incumbent president right now, and Trump's investigations, everything with his lawsuits and stuff, that is all going to hurt him in 2024. I mean, he is, I believe, less electable than he has ever been in his entire life. So right now, my map has Joe Biden at 293 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 245. And so obviously 2024 is a pretty long ways ahead, and we have no idea even who the candidates are going to be right now. However, Trump and Biden would be a pretty good bet. This rematch right now, I think, is going to be ultra competitive as suggested by the electoral vote numbers, but I do think that Joe Biden has a very slight edge. This is merely a snapshot as to where we are right now. Obviously, I cannot predict an election over 2 years in advance without even knowing even who potentially the candidates are going to be. But I think that if Biden and Trump were both to run against each other for a second time, right now I believe that Biden does have an edge. Previously, I gave the edge to Donald Trump, but because of Biden's recent major victories as well as the investigation surrounding Donald Trump, I think it is going to hinder the former president, but we still have 2 years to go. A lot can happen in that time. I mean, obviously, if Joe Biden loses the House, his ability to pass major bills are going to decrease significantly, and he's going to have to be a lot more moderate in his approach, and that may hinder his chances. But again, both these candidates are also the oldest candidates in American history, and so if they were nominated, their health would be a major concern, and on top of that, they are also probably going to be some of the most unpopular presidents nominated by major parties in American history. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Of course, we'll be returning back to 2022 coverage just tomorrow. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Comment down below who you think would win in a 2024 matchup between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and I will see you guys in the next video.